Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday, August 20 Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Before we get started, read the roll. I got to wish Mark Cotter a happy 50th birthday. We all just came from Mark Cotter's amazing birthday party, and it was still going on, and we had to come here.
It's Rick Kiley's birthday.
And it's also Councilor Rick Kiley's birthday today. So, should we clap for that? Sure. We'll clap for that. All right. So with that, we will go ahead and get our meeting started and begin by reading our roll, please.
Councilmember Sale.
Here.
Starr. Here. Staley.
Here.
Brecky. Erickson.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer. Here. Selberg.
Here. All right, this evening to give our invocation is Dorothy Terhorst, another good Dutch last name, like Ten Haken, from the Direct Line Prayer Center. And she's a partner there, and I would ask that you would stand for her to give the invocation and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I wanted to tell you that when I sat down to write a prayer for tonight, I couldn't think of anything to put down. And when that happens to me, I just grab my Bible and turn to the Psalms, and I pray scripture. And so I'm going to pray scripture tonight, so please join me. Psalm 121. We lift up our eyes to the mountains. Where does our help come from? We thank you, Lord, that our help comes from you, the maker of heaven and earth. Thank you, Lord, that you will not let our feet slip and that you will not slumber. Indeed, as you watch over our city, you neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over us. He is our shade at our right hand. The sun will not harm us by day, nor the moon by night, and for that we thank you, Lord. And thank you, God, that you will keep us from all harm and will watch over our lives. The Lord will watch over our coming and going, both now and forevermore. We thank you for this promise. Psalm 125. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken, but endures forever. O Lord, help us to trust in you. Thank you that as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds Sioux Falls and all of its people, both now and forevermore. God, surround us with your love. We need it, Lord. Psalm 127. Unless the Lord builds the city, the builders labor in vain. Lord, please build Sioux Falls your way. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. Lord, please watch over us. Psalm 25 in closing. Show Mayor Tenhaken and the council your ways, O Lord, and teach them in your paths. Guide them in your truth and teach them, for you are God, our Savior, and our hope is in you all day long. Lord, please send your Holy Spirit to comfort everyone here tonight. We ask you to send out all anxiety, depression, chaos, and confusion. Holy Spirit, you are our peace. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay,
Good evening. I'm Christine Erickson, and I would like to invite Rich, and I'm going to say your name wrong. I've been practicing. Macaris, am I correct? Okay, come on up. Tonight we have a special recognition, which is our Superhero Award. And first of all, Rich, I know you have some special guests with you. Why don't you introduce your special guests that are with you tonight?
I got my 3 children, Hannah, Henry, Hazel, my wife Shannon, and my sister Ruth Ann.
Perfect. Thank you. So we do this on a monthly basis where we like to recognize somebody in the community, and it's a nomination that comes through for the Superhero Award. And tonight's a special one, just knowing the impact that Rich has made in our community. So I'd like to read a little bit about the nomination, hear about Rich. Rich wears multiple hats within our community with a purpose to provide service unto others. Rich serves as the pastor for King of Glory Church, executive director for the Sioux Falls Ministry Center, serves on the board of Compassion Child Care, chaplain for the Sioux Falls Police Department, and many other items. Rich understands that service means rolling up your sleeves and giving of oneself. He routinely walks our core neighborhoods with the intent of building relationships and helping people where they are, and most importantly, without judgment. In fact, on most Saturdays, you'll find him and his young kids repairing and cleaning homes in the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood, where he currently works diligently through various ministries to purchase existing rental housing stock and invest back into them so that residents in the neighborhood have a safe, clean, affordable housing with a reliable and committed property manager. I'm not done. There's a lot more to say about you. He also works tirelessly to find opportunities to create partnerships among nonprofits, organizations, faith-based institutions, and concerned citizens from all walks of life to solve big challenges. One very recent example is the purchase and transformation of the 14-acre former School for the Deaf campus into the Empire Sioux Falls campus, a ministry intended to provide assistance to lower-income residents and those impacted by poverty. Both vision and divine intervention were needed to ensure that all parties involved would see how important Rich's vision is for this campus, our community, and most especially the people that it will serve. I can't think of anyone else that could have endured the path to get this across the finish line other than Rich. Rich is a true superhero, champion for our city, and we are so grateful for his efforts and example. Let's give Rich a round of applause. I'd like to give you a certificate.
And I will say this guy hates being up here right now. He is humble pie rich. This is probably driving him nuts that he's being recognized like this. But I will say specifically what Councilor Erickson talked with the School for the Deaf campus, which I believe is going to be a transformative project for the city, would simply not have happened without Rich McCurris. It was a huge lift for the city. And so I just want to take this moment to personally thank you for working with us, working with the state government. I know government is a little challenging at times to get projects done, so that's what I've heard anyway. So thank you, Rich, for all you do, man. I appreciate you, brother. You want to get in the picture, kiddo?
Hurry up, they got business to do.
All right, thank you, Rich. We'll move on, council, to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Look for a motion on that.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Councilor Starr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull items number 3. Thank you. You're very good at that. I'd like to pull items number 3 and number 10.
Number 3 and number 10, okay.
Thank you.
Any other changes, council, to the consent agenda? All right, look for a motion to approve that then.
A vote, Mayor.
Sorry, a vote. We got a motion, a vote to approve that, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. We will move on to our regular agenda, item 26. Look for a motion on that, please.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion approved by Erickson and seconded by Sale. Council, any discussion on that? All right, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. We're at the General public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on in the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration, please. At this time, I'd like to invite people forward to speak for general public input, and clerk, please note our time is 7:10. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm James Reed. I just, first of all, I want to apologize for last week's meeting. Heather didn't mean to do what she did, when the finger incident. She didn't mean it towards anybody, and because I told her, I said, next time you want to say something, just say the bird or something. So I want to apologize, and I'm still can't believe how some people who are, have disabilities, like anxieties or like Heather, because I was just like what happened at the banquet last night. Just like right out of no reason, everybody started to get right on her to where she just, and that's where I had to put her in the car, which I can't believe the situation I'm in now, which it's going to get better because I do have some churches that and it's going to be talking on my behalf to, or some organizations like that. I just can't understand how people can just push people that are mental, where they got, where they can't, where they have hard times, to where it's just like I tell everybody, when you approach Heather, you have to keep your distance, okay? And she talks loud, it's like she's being aggressive, which that's how she's been all her life because of all her past, okay? She's doing pretty good, which I can say, I'll admit, she does get loud at times, but we got to do something because because technically, if she was by herself, she couldn't make it. She could make it if she had, like a home or a house like that, because she usually just locks herself in there and does her karaoke that she does. That's what keeps her low maintained. So I just want to apologize for last week. You guys keep up the good work too, okay?
All right, thank you, James. Good evening.
Good evening, Heather Pastor. Yeah, I guess, well, he probably should have used a different term. Basically, I have learning abilities, I have a mentality of a young kid, and anxieties. Now, I'm not mental, okay? I have, this stuff that I was born with since I was a kid. I do apologize about the finger thing last week. I want to clear the air. That wasn't directed towards any of you guys. I was trying to explain how intimidating the old landlord, the one that I'm in the middle of a pending suit against, Mark Samuel Graham, how intimidating he was. Because this individual will deliberately push buttons and try to get even my fiance to chase after him or try to get me to go off. And like I said before, I have been physically attacked by this individual and also put back in a hospital with a serious surgery where they had to drain a lot of fluid out of me, which I could have bled to death if I would not have been to the hospital. I don't really like the way I get treated a lot of places in Sioux Falls. I gotta be real honest. I'm starting to get depressed to the point to where I actually got a question for this state. I came here when I was 19, and I'm 42 now. I would like to know what exactly is this state's grudge against me. Because I've been alienated against everywhere, not just apartments, not just businesses, not just places, but motels, hotels, apartments, places I go to try to get help. Like everywhere I go, it's like I got people just coming at me in the wrong manner. I do know one thing. I went to church last Sunday, to the church I go to, and the pastor was talking about just because you don't see something happen doesn't mean that it's not on the way. I got talking with another pastor, but thank God, finally somebody not to close the door on me is going to help me and my fiance with finding a place and even get community outreach to help us. So I'm leaving the rest in God's hand. I just hope things will get better for me, because actually if people get a chance to know me, I'm a kind person, I'm a helpful person, I'm a loving person. Amen.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dwayne Skipper. Just some random thoughts. First of all, I'd like to say one thing about the City Health Department. I'd like to commend them on the past years of very good mosquito control. It's one thing that the city has done that I can actually feel and say that has been very good. I hope 90% of the people in the city can say the same. Another random thought, potholes filling should be as important as highly visible overlays, such as the 41st Street overlay recently done. Budget-related things, you've got a 9% budget increase, second year in a row. This is added on to 6% water and sewer rates increasing. I'll just say this, adding employees is the most expensive part of the city budget and lasts indefinitely. One other thing, prepaying any reasonable price debt, like the recent water and sewer debt paid off, only puts more pressure on the need to increase short-term revenue, i.e. water and sewer rates, which I have talked about time and time again. One last thing. Parks and Recreation. I didn't get the chance to address this completely. Prairie, just as an example, it's kind of nitpicky. Prairie Trail Park, Tomar Road and about 63rd. It's next to the Prairie Green Golf Course. In the last 4 weeks, I've walked that area, and I'm not sure if the city doesn't have mulching blade technology on their equipment, but you would need a hay rake and a baler to pick up the clippings. And they're still there after a second mowing. I just think it's disgraceful. The other thing is that there's a basketball court there. I walk by it, there's a sign that's 4 by 6 feet made out of 2 by 4s that has been sitting there for 2 months, telling about the replacement of the basketball court coming. The cost of that sign alone could repair 5 or 6 small cracks in the concrete of that court. Now, there are 2 other major cracks in the court, but it seems to me that they could be fixed easily instead of demolishing the whole court. So if you get a chance to take a look at that basketball court, you know, the clippings are starting to degrade, but that mowing is just, they're scalping it. It's too low, and it needs to be improved.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Greetings. I'm David Zalkaitis, and I'm here to talk about how important it is to respect free speech. Sometimes it's a lot of work, it's not always comfortable, but if you're going to have a democracy, it is important to protect free speech. All right. Now, earlier this month, a man named Mark Burgess was exercising his right to free speech in a not so eloquent manner. Freedom is messy, I have to admit that. And he was arrested for what he yelled at passing patrol cars. There's 3 charges that the man was placed with, and there were quite a few officers involved in this particular issue. So I tracked down South Dakota law regarding disorderly conduct, and it doesn't look like it applies. It's quite a stretch to say that it applies to cursing at police, because that's not in there. Now, with some help from Sierra, go ahead, next one. We looked at case law. Now, this is getting to be more important because it's so clear. The Supreme Court of South Dakota ruled that this man's words are protected speech. Somebody different, not the guy arrested. He was convicted of disorderly conduct for yelling profanities at a police car, but this is protected speech. Now, it's a job of police to know what they're doing, and this shows that this recent arrest was illegal. Not good, not good. And this is all too similar to one of my personal experiences when 4 police officers gave me a hard time for shoveling silt off the bike trail. There's some similarities in attitude and demeanor and such. So it looks like there's some attitudes that need to be changed. Not everybody has these attitudes, but they need work when we find them, particularly the blind loyalty and the need for dominance. It's dangerous. Changing mindset, changing attitudes is a lot of work, so it's going to take a lot of talking for a lot of people to change those mindsets. And here are some aspirations that I deem important, and in 3 years when I'm mayor, we're all going to talk about it. All 1,500 employees, we're going to get these ideas through everybody's skull because they are so critical. And we'll also talk about the pledge that I wrote for the same reason. A lot of good goals, we got to make them work. And then, go ahead, after a long transition period, we will apply the same standard to everybody. All right, responsibility and accountability will accompany power. Great idea. And as always, try to enjoy life so that it's better for everybody. And good evening, because I'm done.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, Stephen Ciano. Man before me just spoke of abuse of power, and I've seen that on a national stage as well, where we see people are responsible for other people resulting in deaths. It's been on a national media. You've got the guy that was in prison for human trafficking, sex trafficking, was murdered apparently, and they call it a suicide, and surprisingly no one's around to observe what's going on. They are ultimately responsible and should not be given leave or vacation. They should be arrested. They should have been immediately in jail, those responsible. And I would say that the same applies to any governing or administrative body in a position of where their actions result in someone's death or other crimes against the person. A lot has happened to me, as I've shared. There's been an attack on me because of my beliefs and my disability. And this is extended to city personnel. On Falls Community Health, they could have gotten the information to get me the medical care that I'm entitled to, and they could have gotten payment from the VA. Could have been done legally based upon medical records. They did not do this. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I've gone to various people, professionals who have denied me access here, there, and everywhere. What's going on behind the scenes? There's always more than what the public is aware of. And I encourage the public to be more aware of what's going on. And people generally like to be entertained rather than face the real issues. And I think that there are ways that public could be open to both. Like on TV, I have found some shows that I like Adam Ruins Everything. I would recommend, where he takes a comical view of or position to debunk certain beliefs that people have about various aspects of our society. Ancient Aliens presents an interesting alternative, as I believe that there may be stuff going on. And George Carlin, if somebody finds him offensive, consider the points that he's bringing out. that he's addressing. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Good evening.
Hello, everybody. I'm Catherine Riffle. I'm an advocate for the homeless and displaced persons. I have been here many times. I've stopped coming for a few reasons and to see what was going on the streets. I'm still here and I see very few changes. My organization's name is Katie's Open Door. It's for the better good of the people. It's a nonprofit. Our mission statement is intending to take care of the people and to see that everyone is treated properly with dignity, et cetera. You can read it for yourselves. The triage in business that you have getting ready to be put in place is okay in some directions, but it leaves a lot to be desired. Education is needed from the workers towards the homeless. And in the past 26 years, we've had numerous problems with barriers of language, cultural living, illnesses, etc. Again, you can see it for yourselves. I'm appreciative the City Council contacted me to support our endeavors and give assistance and continue to reach out to everyone with vacant buildings. I hope that someone will come forward with that now. As a drop in homeless and displaced persons, some of them have been provided shelter, and some of them have died before they could even be in that shelter within a 6-month period of time. We've lost about almost a dozen persons last winter. We got winter coming in now because the farmers have been telling me how their animals are getting a new coat and how it is strange to them that that's happening sooner. Therefore, it's a warning to us to get on the stick and get something going as a drop-in center so we can get the people off the streets and we continue to move them up the ladder in individual situations and assistance programs that they'd be willing to go into and for the safety and health of others. David Z. did a part on Respite Park Homeless Shelter last week. He did a very good job on it. I hope you are reading it and checking it out. I hope you're going to follow my footsteps on the internet. We only had 10% about negative comments. Everything else is a positive. We've been getting feedback on assisting other people as well. So I just want to let you know I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere, but hopefully we will not have any persons passing away from the winter this year. So I thank you for your help, and if anybody has an open building and they want to help out, we can take care of insurance or whatever agreements would need to be, but we need a drop-in center. And from there, we can get you to where you got to go. Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good evening.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Cotter and his team for being able to get the stop sign and the sign up right away. It was Wednesday when the stop sign went up and Thursday when the other sign went up with the double arrow. I appreciate it. And the neighbors, they came right up to the house and they thanked for being able to get that put up. The neighborhood, we're still working on getting it cleaned up. It's looking better. I appreciate the city for working with the neighborhood on being able to get it done. There's still a lot more things to do, but we're going to do it. The people do realize that there has been a lot more police presence in the neighborhood. They really do appreciate it, and I just want to thank the mayor and the police department for what they're doing in the Whittier neighborhood. And we just got to keep it going. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Sioux Falls. So I'm here today on some of the police officers that have concerns about the body cameras, and I'm going to stress to y'all, if y'all can make room in that budget to go against the Chief Burns and get those body cameras. Y'all know as well as I know how he's been stiff in council with all the emails and giving them the runaround about these body cameras. When a police department does not want body cameras is a sign of corruption. Chief Burns needs to be put out of office. I will be advocating next mayor's election, if he's not out of office, to be advocating for another mayor to get the chief of police out. I will be speaking on behalf of Sergeant Van Rokel with the Street Crimes Unit. We have 4 officers for Street Crimes Unit. Those 4 officers monitor prostitution, pimping, johnning. They also conduct stings. They do alcohol compliance, tobacco compliance, and they also assist with the drug unit. On top of, they also are the people that investigate in the gang unit. 4 people in 120-something thousand population of a city here. So when I asked the mayor to put it, I hope that it's approved and Chief Burns puts his police where they need to be. 6 police is not enough. The police department needs to be organized and structured better. We have middle class, rich people, and poor that have voted for the mayor and have not voted for the mayor and said that we need to do something in this police department. If the mayor cannot see what's going on the streets, and I'm not talking about Mr. Bergeson, we have a problem. We have a problem in the neighborhoods. The police cannot keep up with calls for service. Do we have enough police officers on the streets at the time of the hours of the crime happening? Absolutely not. This is coming from sergeants and officers. Y'all have a duty to see what y'all can do in the budget. I'm advocating on behalf of this police department that we make room for this budget. We get these police cameras on these officers. These officers said that they don't have a problem. They know what they can do internally when they push the camera, when not to push the camera. They're not going to feel like they're robots. And it's nationwide that other police departments are doing it, so why can't we? And I'm going to stress right now, I took off of work to talk about this on behalf of this police department and to address this mayor, and I'm very serious about this. We need to come down on this police chief, and this police chief needs to do better than what he's done in the community, or he needs to be replaced, or we need to replace the mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? All right, clerk, next item, please.
The next 2 items are items pulled from the consent agenda, item 7, sub-items 3 and 10. First one is Planning and Development Services Housing Amendment for Development and Construction Costs. This amendment will reduce building footprint from a triplex to a twin home design. Vendor is Affordable Housing Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $448,000. And sub-item 10 is from the City Attorney Department for engagement agreement for legal services. The vendor is Fuller, Williamson, Nelson, and Preheim LLP in the amount of $50,000.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you don't mind, I'd like to defer to our planning director and Mr. Eckhoff to address this for me.
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
So, Councilor Starr, do you have a specific question?
Just give me the general what we're doing, because it's confusing of how we're moving and what the project is
Okay.
and exactly what we're doing.
So along Harrington and the adjacent street, they've been putting in twin homes. And they had a lot left where they had a plan to do a threeplex, and it turned out there was just enough room for a twin home, to put another twin home in. So the amendment does a couple things. It moves some money around. Homes are typically funded through 3 to 4 sources. CDBG, which is federal money, the home funds, which are HUD funds, and then money left over after the building goes into a revolving fund. And then, if needed, we put in general funds. This one did not call for any general funds. And so the reason we moved the CDBG money before, that's primarily for acquisition of land. The home funds, the reason we didn't have money in there to start with, they have more, a longer stipulation on how long the property has to stay affordable. And so it has more federal entanglements. What we want to do is free up the CDBG money, because as you know, Shelley has this longer term plan to leverage larger lots and do more of an impact. So it was a matter of freeing up CDBG money and replacing it with the home funds. And then the revolving fund amount stayed the same.
So the reason that the the amount is 448,000 is because it's actually money being removed or that we're adding back to home funds to replace the community development
so
block grants.
the total project for the twin home is 448,000. 99,000 of that's federal money, and 349,000 is from the revolving fund, which is the money left over after there's a sale. So the homes are already pre-sold, and so they're sold at a price of $177,500 each. And what that does is a net sale price of $355,000. So there's a gap of $93,000. That's with the federal money, because a home, whether it's affordable, it's the same cost to build it, and so the federal money comes in and buys the price down so it's affordable. And so when it's all said and done, we should have $6,000 left over or more, $6,000 to $10,000 left over. They'll go back in the revolving fund. But both of the homes are being constructed, but they're both pre-sold. And then that'll finish out that development.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic? All right, look for a motion on item 3 here then.
So move, Star.
Second, Kylie.
All right, move approval by Counselor Starr, seconded by Kylie. Any other discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on that one, please.
Council members Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that one passes 8-0. And the other item, item 10, Counselor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this one is a lot clearer of what the intent is that we're in litigation with VRG and the parking ramp situation. It looks and it appears to me that we're retaining local counsel now to move forward, but if the city attorney doesn't mind, just basically probably end up stating the same thing.
Everything you said is true.
I love lawyers that are brief and to the point. Thank you, sir. I guess it's just for me that I felt this needed to come off the consent agenda to at least inform the citizens that we are moving forward with to defend ourselves in a lawsuit against VRG, and that we are now using local counsel to defend us.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak on that topic? All right, look for a motion to approve this item then.
Move to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion by Counselor Kylie, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll vote on that, please.
Council members Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Next item, item 28, new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license for Agua Fresh, 101 South Phillips Avenue, Suite 101, CUP not required. Item 29, new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license and 2019 retail wine and cider license for the Root Cellar, 701 North Phillips Avenue, Suite 150, CUP not required, pending final inspections for building services. Item 30, new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license and 2019 retail wine and cider licenses for Willikers, 3625 West Avera Drive, CUP not required, pending final inspections for fire, health, and building services. Item 31, request to include video lottery terminals with the new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license for Willikers, 3625 West Avera Drive, CUP not required, pending final inspections for fire, health, and building services. Item 32, new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license and 2019 retail wine and cider license for Sakura Sushi, 2400 South Marion Road, Suite 160, CUP not required, pending final inspections for fire, health, and building services. Item 33, transfer of 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license and transfer of 2019 retail wine and cider license from Hydra Beer Company, 2425 South Shirley Avenue, Suite 112, to Lupulin Brewing LLC, Lupulin Brewing Company, 2425 South Shirley Avenue, Suite 112, CUP not required. Item 34, transfer of 2019 packaged liquor license from Fairway Stores Incorporated, Fairway Store number 136, 1431 West 41st Street, to Fairway Stores Incorporated, Fairway Store 3005 South Hidden Place, pending final inspections for health. Item 35, transfer of 2019 retail liquor license from C.R. Lloyd Associates, Lloyd Companies, 101 South Reed Street, Suite 201, to Severance Beer LLC, Severance Brewing Company, 701 North Phillips Avenue, Suite 110, CUP not required, pending final inspections per building services. Item 36, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Minnehaha County Democratic Party to be operated at the History Club of Sioux Falls, 758 South Phillips Avenue for a fundraiser on August 23, 2019. And item 37, special one-day liquor license for T-Slat Incorporated to be operated at the Museum of Visual Materials, 500 North Main Avenue for a wedding reception on October 5th, 2019.
Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on items 28 through 37.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Anyone from the public here to speak on any of these items tonight? All right, council, do you have questions for Jamie on 28 through 37?
Move to approve, Erickson.
All right, is there a second there?
Kylie?
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kylie. Discussion on any of these, council? We will take a vote, please.
Council members Sale?
Yes.
Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Dahlberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 38, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations for funding repairs and replacements for parks and recreation flood-related damages, $1 million.
Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. This is the second reading for the supplemental appropriation for the flood damage that we encountered on March 14th of 2019 as part of the spring flooding. We had record crests on the Skunk Creek and at Western Avenue. We also had unprecedented ice flows during that flooding, and then obviously that was a source of a lot of the damage that we received through the park system during that flood. There's two types of damage that we received. One is operational related, where it's just more fixing what we already have. And then there's examples here of the electrical systems within the Yankton Trail Park, some signage along the trail, and other amenities that were in the park at the time of the flood. And then there's also a capital side where there are full replacement projects. One being on the left is the Dunham Park Bridge, and we had a couple shelters at Legacy Park that were also damaged. As a reminder, we are submitting these costs for reimbursement through FEMA. So the match on this is 75% federal, 10% state, and 15% city. Realizing that these are being requested for reimbursement, so ultimately FEMA will decide what we get reimbursed, but we're very positive about that we'll get a good reimbursement on these damages. As far as the operational side of things, we're likely to get reimbursement in the first quarter of 2020 because those are either underway or about to get underway. And then as it relates to some of the capital stuff, it may be later because, for example, the Dunham Park Bridge won't bid until December of this year, and as soon as weather breaks in the spring, we'll start that project. So knowing that we'll have to wait until the project is done, the reimbursement will come a little later for that one. Here's a recap both from the operating or the general fund. On the left side is about $600,000 for those damages and repairs to those damages. And on the right table, you see the sales tax portion, with the majority of that coming from the Dunham Park Bridge. And then at the bottom of both of those slides is what our finance team and Regan estimate that will be reimbursed, realizing that, again, that's subject to final approval by FEMA. Just wanted to also thank the volunteers again during the flood cleanup, not only all the service groups and businesses that came out, but also the Department of Correction and the inmates that helped us with that as well. And be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Don. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, councilors, do you have questions for Don on this? Councilor Neitzer?
There are a number of bathrooms along the Greenway that are offline, I'm guessing because of electrical damage. With this approval, what would be the timeline? Do you know that they would be restored?
Yeah.
Potentially?
Yeah, the damages on the Greenway should be, let's see here. Should be November, so it'll be at the end of the year. Okay. Part of the challenges with electrical, and the reason why we can't get them open is because there's no lighting in those bathrooms as a result of the electrical damage. And so by fall, we hope to have all that back in shape for next spring's season.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other questions, Councilor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Kearney, one of my questions. When we're looking at reimbursement, we've had a number of groups that use our parks during the summer, and with the electrical being out, they had to bring in temporary lighting, I'm assuming, at different points. Are they eligible to apply for FEMA because of those that would have normally been working, or how does that work?
That's a good question. I don't know if Kelby's been our point of contact on this. I don't know if Kelby, if you have any additional information. We can certainly submit it, but it's just a question whether it'll get reimbursed.
But it would make sense. I mean, I'm thinking of Jazz Fest. I'm thinking of some soccer tournaments, some different events that did happen. I think of Yankton Trail specifically, but I'm assuming probably through the city that there were groups that had to make extra expenditures because the normal
definitely.
infrastructure wasn't there.
If it's certainly a possibility to be reimbursed, we'll certainly submit it.
I tossed it out.
Other questions for Don? All right, I'd look for a motion on this item.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Sale. Any discussion among the council? We will take a vote, please.
Council members Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Delberg?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Item 39.
Item 39, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 111, restrictions on issuance of malt beverage retailer licenses, consumption on public streets or alleys, and repealing 111.031 reapplication.
Councilor Brecky.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to give a brief explanation of the rationale behind this ordinance revision. I was invited out to Deuces Casino to look at a situation that was occurring with them with regard to some regulations that were adopted by the city. And in that capacity, while I was out there, it really appeared to me, I guess I felt like I was wearing my small business hat. Having been a regulator for years and then having ran a small business, I certainly saw both sides of the issue. Sometimes you run into regulations that feel like they don't really have a meaningful purpose and create a burden to the small business owner. When I went out there, I looked at this, and that seemed to be the situation out there, that we had a situation where it created a safety problem because that in this casino that shares 2 licenses, there was a need for the employee to move money between the 2 facilities and had to go outside in order to do that. And so I think that was a legitimate safety concern, which could be resolved by just allowing an atrium-style area, and it really did not, affect, I think, the overall operation. In addition, the other requirement that I'm modifying is that there was a requirement that we have 2 separate coolers. And that also, again, it seemed to create a burden, an unnecessary burden, without really solving any, legitimate regulatory issue. So this would allow the facility to share a cooler, but it would still have to be divided with a cage requirement, so that there was no movement between the alcohol. So the 2 separate premises, could still be completely separate as far as how their alcohol revenues are generated, but would not have the ability, to move it back and forth, but could still be done with 1 cooler operation. So those are really the 2 issues that, seemed of importance to me. And so I agreed to bring forth this ordinance to resolve this issue. The other issue for me was a legal one. It is clear there has been a South Dakota Supreme Court case where the South Dakota Supreme Court clearly has told the city of Sioux Falls that the State Lottery Commission has preempted the field in regulating video lottery, and that the city should not unduly burden video lottery regulations. And in fact, the Supreme Court case actually said the state intended to fully occupy the field of video lottery to the exclusion of municipal regulation. In that case, it had to deal with a zoning issue, but I think this is an analogous situation. So really, in sum and substance, what I'm doing here is, I think I'm just asking the city to just back out of this situation and let the state handle it. The situation that they have out there and that they're wanting to operate under by removing these barriers is allowed in the rest of the state. It's only Sioux Falls that has this regulation, and so I'm requesting that we simply bring ourselves into alignment with the rest of the state. At this juncture, I would take any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Councilor Brecky. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for entertaining this issue on second reading. It's a pleasure to be back. My name is Drew Duncan. I represent Commonwealth Gaming, which includes Deuces Casino and a few other locations. Before I start, I have to say one thing. At last week's meeting, and I think I've done this before when I've been here in front of you, when I go to answer a question, I reference the mayor first, and this was brought to my attention after last week's meeting. I suggest Mr. Mayor, and then I go to the person, the councilman or woman who asked the question. That's an old habit from the legislature. They require all answers to go through the chair, in this case, the mayor. And as my father has always told me, old habits die hard. So when I suggest that, I apologize. And if that's not the proper decorum here, please forgive me.
We'll allow it.
I'm sure you will. Thank you. And since I was here a week ago, I don't intend to take up a lot of your time. Let me stress, this ordinance provision does nothing to expand video lottery machines or access to those machines or establishments in the city of Sioux Falls. State of South Dakota fully regulates that field, and as I said last meeting, although this is not what my clients want to hear, there really doesn't appear to be any appetite at the state level for expanding video lottery terminals in Sioux Falls or statewide in any capacity. This revision is only meant to accomplish three goals. First, it's meant to allow small business owners to provide more safety measures for their employees. As I said last meeting, it's untenable to continue to require employees and managers to physically have to go out of their establishments to collect money from video lottery machines to serve their patrons. Even with the door locks, as many of you have seen when you've been to the establishment, or the numerous video cameras that we have at the establishment, which could, at most establishments, could number more than 20, or the training that we give to our employees, we want to do anything we can to provide additional safety measures for those people, because many of them have been with us for a long time, and we appreciate their employment. Second, this allows small business owners to run more efficiently in businesses. As Councilman Neitzer suggested at the last meeting so eloquently, South Dakota regulation allows non-public access between locations for employees. Our current ordinance does not, and allows for video lottery employees to monitor video lottery machines by video cameras and periodic inspections. It's really all we're asking for here. And we would just like the ordinance to match the scheme that's, that the state of South Dakota has. And finally, as Councilman Brecky has suggested, we just want to bring Sioux Falls in line with the other jurisdictions in the state of South Dakota. The law decision in my mind is pretty clear, and the quote that Councilman Brecky read is apropos, but the other that I like is the Supreme Court suggested that the video lottery scheme is significantly comprehensive to make reasonable the inference that the legislature left no room for supplementary regulation of video lottery by municipalities. And my clients just believe that these changes bring Sioux Falls' ordinance in line with South Dakota statute. So for those reasons, I would ask for your support for this revision, and I stand by for questions, and I thank you very much. I've also brought copies of the statute that Councilman Neitzer suggested or referenced last week, and I've also got a copy of the declaratory ruling 90-06, which talks about distinct and separate facilities. If anybody would want one, I have copies for everybody, but I think most of you, I've provided them to you in the past. Thank you. I stand by for questions.
Thank you, Drew. Anyone else here to speak on this topic tonight? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Matt Krogman. I'm a lobbyist for the South Dakota Licensed Beverage Dealers and Gaming Association. And what that is a statewide organization that's made up of on and off sale liquor licensees, restaurant owners, bar owners, video lottery establishments. I'm not going to take your time repeating what you've already heard. We're here in support of this ordinance. Passing it will help remove some burdens on that current Sioux Falls businesses have to deal with and bring us more in order to how businesses across the state get to operate their business. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone else here to speak on this topic this evening? All right, Council, we'll move into any questions you may have for Councilor Brecky or for Drew or Councilor Neitzer. Start with you.
Just very quick, just to start it off. I will say, when you look at all of our ordinances, including this one, you'll notice that you will not find the words video lottery anywhere in there. And that's because the state preempts us. So just by the fact that we may hear a discussion where people are talking about, you know, whether or not they should be allowed to have a door, this, that, or the other thing, and we're talking about video lottery, we're tacitly admitting that we're doing something that we're not allowed to do. So just based on that alone, all of these regulations need to go away. The state preempts. End of story.
Thank you, Councilor Neitzer. Other questions before we move into discussion? Any questions for folks first? Councilor Staley.
No questions.
Maybe we should get
I got discussion.
maybe we can get a motion on the floor unless there's questions. Councilor Kiley.
I do have a question that pertains to the reapplication. It was just touched on that was just cleanup. Councilor Brecky, can you explain, is that being the reapplication period of 6 months, is that being eliminated because it's already addressed in state law, or is it contrary to one of our own ordinances, or why is that being struck?
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. I did mention it last week, but I forgot this week. That as we were, studying this issue, Jamie Palmer brought it to my attention that as long as we were in this section, that this would bring us into compliance with state law. And so that was something that really came from in-house in the city. And if you've got any detailed questions, Jamie can give you a further explanation.
Jamie, if you could come forward, is it already addressed in state law, and that's why we're striking it from our municipal ordinances?
Jamie Palmer with licensing. Yes, this was, when I found out that she was bringing this forward, I looked through the rest of the ordinances just to make sure. Sometimes there's little tweaks and stuff that get missed. This was a tweak that would bring it in accordance with state law. So there was just a slight difference. It is covered in state law, the reapplication process. So.
Okay, and then the addition up above in 111.023 seems to be self-explanatory, so no questions on that. And that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Council, any other questions for staff or for any of our guests here this evening?
Move to approve, Erickson.
All right.
Second, Kiley.
Motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Councilor Staley, did you
Yes,
want the
I do
floor?
have, so I have a question for Jamie. Jamie, if you come on up. So Jamie, a question. Is it legal in our city, state, to have two bars with one employee serving two bars?
Well, I didn't find anything specific that would prohibit that in state law, but I would feel better if I had a little more time to research that. I will add that in the administrative rules for video lottery, it is allowed, but I don't find anything specifically stated in the alcoholic beverage laws that says you can.
So if someone in Sioux Falls had a wine and beer license, and then they had in another part of a different building or something somewhat connected, then they have, or let's say it's not even connected, but then they have the hard liquor bar, and so you're saying there's a chance they wouldn't be allowed to have one person going back and forth serving this alcohol to these people. So in essence, one facility being vacated while the other one is being serviced by this employee.
Well, as it stands right now in our current ordinance, no, because this section of ordinance would prohibit that.
With just the alcohol part, aside from video lottery.
Correct.
Then also, when we have someone coming through the doors of a bar, they are to be carded by a person, greeted by a person and carded. Is that right? Coming into those facilities.
Yeah, and, I mean, yeah, I mean, if they're in there, let's see, let me back up. If someone under 21 can be on the premise of a on-sale dealer, but they cannot loiter on the premise. So if there's a reason for them to be in that premise, say food, games, anything like that, then that's where the state law says. It just says that they cannot loiter on the property. So
They would have to be checked out, so to speak. I mean, if you have a vacant building, a vacant business, a vacant bar, someone comes in, who's going to be checking them out?
well, essentially, I would believe that the operator would.
The operator who might be in a different building. I mean, would being able to look at them with a video camera be adequate? You don't know. Just say, that's okay, you don't have to.
Yeah, I would have to research that a little bit more.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't find anything specifically in the alcoholic beverage laws that would allow that or prevent that, but there is in the video lottery ordinances.
And, oh, thank you. And, you know, we addressed this, we had this come up a year and a half ago, perhaps. So what we're talking about here, in my mind, is one person manning 20 machines. One person manning 20 machines, when 10 are allowed per business, but we're making this so one person can do 20. And one person will be manning perhaps 20 people drinking, right? If this is what we're saying, it's okay for one person to be serving and being in charge, that's not the right word, but policing, so to speak, 20 people or maybe more, right? How many, what's the capacity of each one of these bars? Jamie, do you know? I mean, if we have 10 video lottery machines, there must be a capacity that you can have in a bar? Could you have 50 people on each side?
I would believe the occupancy would be set by the size of a building, and that's probably different for each building.
Okay, so it will be more than 10, probably. You could fit more than 10. Or maybe Mr. Duncan could come up.
Can I ask the city attorney to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments, and I don't want to, prevent Mr. Duncan from speaking, but I want to make sure the questions may be a little bit unrelated. I mean, when you're talking about video lottery and the rules, laws and regulations that are in effect, one of the things, and Jamie, of course, is supervised by me. What I don't want her to do is speculate about other establishments or things that are distinct from the video lottery and the state code when it comes to anything from, capacity can be a fire code issue as opposed to the number of machines and that type of thing. So I just don't want to draw any analogies or any comparisons or anything that
Right, but
under separate provisions of the law.
I still want, Mr. Duncan, if you come up, Mr. Duncan, just tell us in each one of the facilities what the capacity would be for patrons to be in there.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Staley, I still don't know that I understand the question. Respectfully, I still don't know that I understand the question. Is the question whether or not how many people we can have in each side of the building, or it's how many can one person serve?
How many people can be in each side of the building?
I think that depends. It's a building by building decision. I think I would assume the fire marshal sets that number.
So you could have 20 people in that side, perhaps. I know you can have
if
at
the fire
least.
marshal tells you could have 100, I suppose you could have 100.
You could have at least 10, because there's 10 terminals in there, right?
Again, if the fire marshal tells you could have 100, I would assume you could have 100.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So long as I'm here, I certainly have the statutes that answer your first question as well. 42.7A 37.1 suggests if you're going to get a video lottery license, you have to have a malt beverage license. The requirement in 42.7A 37.1 allows, says all video lottery machines shall be adequately monitored during business hours. Adequate monitoring shall be accomplished by the personal presence of an employee or by an employee using video cameras or mirrors and periodic inspections of the bar or lounge. So I believe that answers your original question.
Thank you. Okay,
Counselor,
I'd like to, I'm not finished yet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I finish?
You have more question, Mr. Duncan?
No, I was still making some statements here at my discussion. I
Okay,
was.
stay up here because Counselor Erickson will have some comments for you. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that we're talking about this, we want to increase the safety of the employee. That's what I heard said. I have a great concern about the safety of the employee. I said last time this issue came forward, I said we have two separate businesses, video lottery, not making a statement on that. If it was two separate bars, I'd say the same thing, have two separate employees manning this. We have one person watching these 20 terminals or video lottery machines. We know that video lottery has a history of having criminal activity happening. That person, I feel sorry for that one person within this establishment. And I know now we want to make it safer so they can move in and out through a door inside, but they're still responsible for one side that's unsupervised, nevertheless, maybe by a video camera, but I just feel sorry for the person working there. And we've had this discussion in the midst of this that, well, it's a private business and they know what's best for their employees. Well, I just wanted to, this came to my mind today, actually during the 4 o'clock informational, and I remembered seeing a documentary on the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Now, this is back in the old days, in 1911, when we were concerned about, we weren't as concerned about the safety of our workers. But I saw this on public TV years ago, and it says, on March 25th, 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Company factory in New York City burned, killing 145 workers. It is remembered as one of the most infamous incidents in American industrial history, as the deaths were largely preventable. Most of the victims died as a result of neglected safety features and locked doors within the factory building. The tragedy brought widespread attention to the dangerous sweatshop conditions at the factories and led to the development of a series of laws and regulations that better protected the safety of workers. Now, and then it goes on down to the 4th paragraph, the dangers of the fire in factories like the Triangle Shirtwaist was well known, but high levels of corruption in both the garment industry and city government generally ensured that no useful precautions were taken to prevent fires. And then on the back, the last one, added to this delinquency was that Blank and Harris' notorious anti-worker policies. Their employees were paid a mere $15 a week despite working 12-hour days every day. Now, not that, and then it talks about how the women were trying to get some help and even the police were pounding down on them. And because of this, they got workers' rights. And so that is a good thing. But my concern is having this one employee, I don't care if it's 2 bars or if it's 2 video lottery businesses, but having one employee be in charge of the whole thing, I think is putting a person in danger. And that's why I was opposed to this before, and I've had some input, and I know, I'm told you're a powerful person. And I think there's powerful people in this industry, and because I'm standing for the safety of someone, if you turn against me, I understand that. But I think this is an important issue. And 4 of us thought so last time this came around, and the mayor at that time, we voted this down. So I think the solution is that you hire 2 people for 2 casinos. And if our state says it's okay to do it this way, then our state has some problems. And that needs to be fixed at that level. But I can't support this. So that's my rationale.
Counselor Erickson.
Thank you, Drew. I have a couple questions, and I would caution us on speculating that just because we have disagreements that Mr. Duncan's going to retaliate on any of us. I think that's really unfair and unnecessary. This article that was in front of us is really comparing apples to oranges. It clearly states that the hose was rotted. We have regulations and things in place with fires, and fire marshal comes through, and they check capacity and all of that. If the employee doesn't want to work in this environment, don't work there. There's job listings everywhere. Don't work there if you don't want to. I mean, that's the freedom that we have in America here, which is quite amazing. My question to you, Mr. Duncan, is, it's my understanding in many of these establishments that there are no bar stools to the bars. This is not a dance club with a DJ and or a band. This is simply a gaming casino in which people are not there to tie one on, so to speak. Talk to me a little bit about the clientele. On average, how many employees are in a traditional style casino? I know that there are some restaurant owners that have machines within there that many of us have frequented. That's different than what you are representing. That I want you to talk a little bit about, and also just refer again back to those administrative rules that do allow this to take place with visual in the two side-by-sides.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Erickson, Councilwoman Erickson, sorry, I apologize. Let me start by saying I have no intention of making this personal with anyone, and if I have, I sincerely apologize. That's not my intent. Let me suggest our locations are very, very rarely, and I use that because I can't speak to 100% of the establishments, hard drinking establishments. We do not have bar stools. If someone comes in, we give away most of our beer and wine. We do not allow one person to come in and sit, at least at the Deuces locations. And let me point out before I go farther, there's a whole room of people here that came to support this ordinance. Many other folks here that own establishments in the community, and I know I speak for all of them when I say we are not operating bars. We have the requirement that we have to get a beer and wine license when we open an establishment. We don't allow people to sit around the machines and just drink on our dime. We provide beer or wine as a complement to their experience. If someone is, as many of you have seen when you were in the establishments for the tour, if there's someone that comes in, as we told you at that time, we don't allow them just to stay and drink a couple of six-packs and on us and cause trouble. That's, if you're not playing, we will ask you to leave. We'll certainly cut you off. And we have the responsibility that if people are have had too much to drink, that we cut them off like any other regular bar owner would. Again, the two statutes that the declaratory ruling and the statute I referred to is an administrative ruling by the Department of Revenue, ruling 90-6, and SDCL 42-7A 37.1. 37.1 talks about the adequate monitoring. I think I touched on that. And 90-6 talks about separate and distinct facilities. And I think Councilman Neitzer touched on that last time, but it allows for no public access directly between, but allows for atrium type access as we were asking for here, and access between the establishments for non-public use, for the use of employees. And that's all we're asking for.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to belabor that.
Councilor Neitzer.
Well, in quick summary, we seem to be getting stuck and going in circles arguing about whether or not they should be allowed to have one employee or not, and this really isn't the venue. State law says that they can have it. So you can vote against this, they're still gonna have one employee. They're just gonna have to go outside. So I mean, really the beef is talking to the state. You think the regulation's crazy, that's fine, but you gotta deal with that at the state level. So once again, you can vote against this, but nothing changes. This is just a common sense regulation to let them have their employee go through the back room, so.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. My comments are going to echo what Councilor Neitzer just stated. This is regarding coming in compliance with state law. We actually voted on this issue 2 or 3 years ago, but a number of us who are here today were not on the presiding side. It's coming back again. I will vote in favor of this. We can't just pick and choose which state laws we're going to follow. We can't decide when we're just going to, we don't like this state law, so we're going to write our own. We do not have the authority to do that. And I would suggest, as Councilor Neitzer said, you do not need to vote for this this evening, but if you do have problems with the current state law, then you need to talk with your legislators and have an impact at the state level, but we can't make those changes here. Thank you.
Councilor Brecky.
As the proponent of this ordinance, I have two areas I'm more than happy to discuss. And one, quite frankly, is the Triangle Waste Shirt Company case. You know, it's a landmark case, and any law student that took labor law probably spent a week on the Triangle Shirt Company case, because in our history of this country, that was really the beginning of labor unions. It was all the excitement generated from that case that began the development in the labor history. And, you know, safety, you know, since then has obviously changed a whole lot, you know, since 1911. And, you know, over the years, because of the labor unions, the levels of history, or the levels of safety in this country, you know, for laborers and workers, you know, has really been probably the envy of the rest of the world. So, you know, I don't have a problem, you know, Councilmember Staley and I went round and round on this. I don't have a problem discussing it. Safety is an important issue, but I think in today's environment, you know, the kinds of safety concerns involved here are pretty much resolved because with the video surveillance, you know, just the lock, the facilities. It's not like the facility hasn't been established without safety issue, you know, without taking into consideration safety concerns. I think that knowing, you know, employers knowing that they have one employee there are probably focused on providing the best safety possible for that one employee. But when I put on my small business hat, what I also know is I don't really think government, you know, should be, for the most part, telling us anymore, you know, how many employees we can have. And in this situation, however, it actually has. I mean, in the video lottery realm, it has said that it's okay to have the one employee. And I think that, you know, quite frankly, that has to do with a small business model that needs to be effective economically. And with the video surveillance and the other security measures that they've taken, you know, I think that the employment in that facility is safe. And again, I appreciate the discussion. There's certainly nothing wrong with flagging safety as an important issue and debating it and discussing it, but I do think that, you know, we've come a long way in this country since that case. In this particular situation, I'm going to rely on the state's regulation of it and the fact that I'm, you know, they have permitted it under these circumstances. And so I think that we should be comfortable with that. If not, again, we should probably address it at the state level. So I would appreciate your support of it. And again, I do respectfully disagree, but I have no problem having the debate and the discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call the question.
All right, Councilor Staley wishes to call the question. We need to take a quick vote on that, which means we're ready to take the vote. So I need 2/3.
Well, I think I'd like to call a point of order on that. Discussion's still happening here. I had some other things to say.
There's on the floor a call to vote. Is there a second on that? Okay, second by Councilor Kiley. So I'll take a vote on that, and again, what we're voting on is, let's take the vote. So a vote on this means we're ready to vote, and then we will take the vote after that.
If I could just ask, is there the...
Call the question is a Robert's Rule of Order to call for the vote. So...
And shut down the discussion.
We will vote on the call to question.
Is there any discussion on the call to question?
No, it's not debatable.
It's not debatable. So, Clerk, please read the roll on that.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
No.
Brecky?
No.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes. All right, we need a 2/3 majority on that, so we don't have that. So we are back to the discussion. Councilor Staley.
And let me just say, I'm deeply offended that you want to shut down the discussion on this. I mean, you've done it in the past to citizens, and now you're doing it to your fellow colleagues.
It's not true.
Disgusting. But what I want to say is that
Please refrain from personal attacks, Councilor Staley. The words like disgusting.
This was a personal attack.
I would ask that you keep the dialogue respectful. Thank you.
this is an opportunity to send a message to the state that says that we don't accept that this is a safety policy that we're going to embrace. One employee that we're going to say is supervising 20 video lottery machines. And last week I brought this up. I said, well, gee, do we want to say that we embrace one employer for 20 video lottery machines? And the answer was, in the legislative priorities, no. So it's kind of we're giving mixed messages here, but I think we must be diligent when it comes to safety. And if the time ever comes and we have that one employee who's manning this double-decker business of 20 video lottery machines, and that person gets injured somehow in a robbery, I'm going to say, wow, it's too bad that we didn't stand fast for safety for both sides of this video lottery business model. And so that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, I will call for the vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
No.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-2. Item 40.
Item 40, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the naming of a facility space on public property. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Hey, Russ.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, Sioux Falls. Name is Russ Sorensen, Planning Projects Coordinator with the city. For your consideration this evening is the first reading of an ordinance for an application that was submitted by the Washington Pavilion on behalf of Karen Bates Trimble to the city for naming one of 8 gallery spaces within the Visual Arts Center at the Pavilion. Currently, the second level gallery space measures about 1,417 square feet and is named the South Dakota Gallery. The proposed name would be the Bates Trimble Gallery. The proposed term and investment is a 10-year, $10,000 annually partnership between the Pavilion and the Karen Bates Trimble. That would total $100,000, and it would commence in 2019 and continue through 2028. The Finance Director has reviewed the sponsorship agreement and expressed no objections. And the City Naming Committee recommended unanimous approval on July 26th of this year. There have been no public comments received on this naming request. At this time, your consideration is requested to set the date of hearing for this ordinance for the second reading at your September 3 meeting.
All right, thank you, Russ. Anyone from the public who wish to speak on this item tonight? All right, Council, you have any questions for Russ on this one? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd on it.
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
All right, so moved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion, Council? All right, we'll vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 41.
Item 41, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 430 West 11th Street from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the LW Live Work District, number 10672-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Good evening, Jason Bieber representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application and owner is Mike Crane representing Lloyd Companies. It's located at 430 West 11th Street, just west of our downtown area. It's about 0.96 acres in size. The purpose, the applicant is looking to redevelop the existing Bowden Youth Center and construct a 3-story apartment complex, and they're looking at possibly getting some offices or small retail uses on that first level.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? All right, Council, you have any questions for Jason on this item? Councilor Staley.
Jason, what have you been hearing from the public on this?
We had a couple of individuals come to the Planning Commission meeting. More of those comments weren't specifically with the redevelopment, more of what kind of elements they were going to utilize with this building. I think certain people wanted them to try and utilize or save some of the Bowden Youth Center materials. That's something that the applicant can maybe address at the second reading if they've looked at that or if it's a possibility with this redevelopment.
Any other questions? Councilor Neitzer.
I don't think would be allowed in this form, but there's not a parking reduction alternative site plan they can do, or?
Depending on the form that they utilize, there's also the ability, as we know this is kind of a concept plan, there's also the ability to do some accessory off-site parking. I believe the lot to the north that's owned by the Y, they can utilize that in conjunction if it's something that we'd rather see less parking and more green space or some kind of a trade-off in that. There's other options for that.
Yeah, I don't know what they're looking for, but anything where they could get more green space and we could help them find parking and existing uses. What would it take to would the whole block have to petition to put it into like the DTPUD? Because then they would be allowed to use like down,
Yep, the whole
someday
block would be, and typically we haven't utilized that west of Minnesota Avenue. We've kind of had Minnesota Avenue as our west boundary for the downtown planned unit development. But there's ways for them to do some alternative parking plans, as you indicated, plus there's additional parking if it's within 250 feet, and there's quite a bit of excess parking in this area. They just were starting out with a concept plan just to make sure that they could get the parking on site, but I think there's continuing the discussions to move some of that parking off site and get additional green space for this building.
Yeah, I hope we can do whatever we can to help them in that regard. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jason, you made a really good point that I've spent a lot of time as we approve these because you use the term concept plan. So we're going to make the zoning switch, and there's, at the end, as long as it matches live work, it's potentially not going to look anything like what's being presented tonight or on second reading.
Correct. It doesn't have to look like this building. It's important to note with the existing commercial zoning, they could construct a similar use, but it would just be 2 stories right now. They're going to the live work to actually be able to allow them to go up to the 3 stories and hopefully do some of that mixed use. That's really the purpose of the rezoning. Otherwise, they could do retail or office on the first level and 1 level of apartments above it. But as you know, if we're closer to downtown, we like a little bit higher of uses. So.
No, and I guess that goes back to my, not negative on this plan or this specific concept plan, but what frustrates neighbors in infill areas more than anything is they'll come back to me and say, well, they said during the zoning change that they were going to do this. And we don't always make it clear that, no, this is just to get the zoning changed and whatever happens later happens later. And it's kind of a chicken or egg type of thing for most of the people who would live in this neighborhood of what we're trying to accomplish. Because the other side of this is maybe we don't make the zoning change until we know that it's a concept, not a concept plan, and making that difference. And I think we're starting to see more and more frustration from neighborhoods where these are a little more controversial or it's in an infill area of the city versus on the edge of the city. I don't usually struggle around the edges of the city because people know, but there are already people there and we're making a change to their neighborhood. I think this will probably end up being a very positive change to their neighborhood, but I don't think neighbors see it that way when things change completely from what they're doing here. And I mean, we could list examples if we wanted to, but not sure in this case it wouldn't make more sense to wait to do it until there's a plan in place.
And I think
More of a comment.
Yep. And I think as staff, we understand that aspect of it, but we're also looking at it from a land use perspective, and where we have the downtown and then we're transitioning to commercial west of Minnesota, like the bank that's just to the east. And then typically from that transition from commercial to existing residential neighborhood, as you get to the west, there's some fourplexes, there's some single family. We really do want that mix of office or maybe some apartments, which the live work allows them to do both of those. So in a planning perspective, they're going to live work, which actually is a pretty good transition from the downtown to commercial to office or apartments to townhomes or fourplexes to single family. So we've still got that transition.
Councilor Erickson, then Councilor Staley.
First of all, Director Cotter was in front of us today, and we touched on the whole infill development, how important it is as we do the sprawl throughout the city and how expensive it is. With the infrastructure already being there, I think that this is a great project. However, I do understand what Councilor Starr is saying. Councilor Neitzert and I were on a west side development where there were not restrictions put in place or conditions put in place, and I don't think they envisioned that that was going to be in place, but it was zoned that way without those restrictions, if you will. So I don't know if it would be appropriate to ask the applicant a question at this time and ask if, would you be opposed to us adding those restrictions of saying, hey, here's the expectation, just so all of a sudden, I also don't want to hamstring your development either, so I'm very mindful of that to say, it has to fit in this box and that's it. So I get the balance of it, but I also want to make sure that that expectation is there for the neighborhoods when we do those infill developments. So all of a sudden you don't have 600 units, and this wouldn't support that anyways, but a huge development that meets live work, but it wasn't what the pretty picture that we were shown. I'm just trying to find the balance with that a little bit, and I don't know.
And as a staff, we're trying to do a better job of relaying those things to the neighborhood. Here's what they're showing, but this is what it could be. I think the one you're referring to was showed a little bit smaller, less dense of a project, and then it went to a higher density. This one's actually about the highest density they can do in the zoning district, the 3 stories. So if they did change it, it wouldn't be anything bigger than this. It would have to go down. So it's a little bit different, but, but I understand.
That makes me more comfortable knowing that exists the way it is. Tell me, if I can ask one more question, what was the neighborhood feedback? Was there any, or?
Like I kind of indicated, we didn't have any adjacent neighbors opposed, in my opinion, opposed to them doing the redevelopment. It was more of what kind of materials are they going to use? Is it in a historic district? Because this center's been here forever. I believe the applicant is going to have a neighborhood meeting before second reading to try and get any additional questions that the neighborhood had. But adjacent property owners didn't have a specific issue with apartments or mixed use. It was more of, you know, the Bowden Youth Center's been there forever. Why is it not an historical district? Can we utilize some of those materials? Was more what we heard as a staff.
Okay, thank you for clarifying it. I am more comfortable knowing that it's at the max use, but as we move forward, that's just the balance that we need to find as a council with those developments as well as working with your department. So thank you.
Councilor Steele?
So were the, I know on Facebook I saw some dialogue about this, like the downtown Sioux Falls group was talking about it. Were they aware they could have come and testified tonight? Did someone tell them?
I'm not sure if they were aware. We had one person testify at the planning commission meeting. This one was a little odd because we didn't hear anything from neighbors until the day of the planning commission meeting. We got a call that somebody was going to come to the meeting. So we actually had this on consent agenda. And then we had one gentleman come to the meeting and discuss more, like I indicated, about the materials. I didn't have anybody call saying that, asking if they could come testify at first reading.
So what I'm just going to advise publicly to you and your department is that you do encourage people to come to the first reading, because what happens, it's happened 2 times now where somebody's showing up at the second reading, throwing new evidence or concerns out, and we end up deferring it. To the graciousness of my colleagues, thank you for that.
And we agree, we'd rather have that stuff up front.
Yeah, then we have a chance to go out and look it over and kind of heed their concerns a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, why the applicant is going to have a neighborhood meeting, because we saw some of these concerns pop up right before the planning commission meeting. And so that's why he's going to try and reach out and get some of the neighbors to come and discuss anything that they have issues with. So, but like I said, it was more of not the land use, but more of the Bowden Youth Center redevelopment. So,
Councilor Neitzert.
I do have a few comments, but I know the applicant is here, and I'm pretty sure he had a neighborhood meeting a week ago. I think.
Come forward, sir.
Could I have Mr. Crane come forward and tell us if he's had a meeting and what? And I will say that the commentary that I heard was largely from people that aren't neighbors necessarily, but they're passionate about the neighborhood and about historic preservation.
Good evening. Mike Crane from the Lloyd Companies. First, let's talk about the neighborhood meeting. We had a neighborhood meeting last Thursday. We sent out mailed invitations using the city's list, and then one of the attendees was a member of the Pettigrew Neighborhood Association, and through his communication network, another 100 invites were sent out. We had 3 people. One was a business person representing his company in the neighborhood. The other 2 were out from outside of the neighborhood. And as Jason indicated, they were talking more about historic preservation and about the city plan for the Pettigrew area, and they were thinking it should be more defined and refined than it is. Secondly, I want to just touch a little bit on the, if I might, on Councilmember Starr's comments. I understand what you're saying when you talk about concepts, but when you, in this particular instance, we're here getting our zoning now because we're going to be, this is going to be an affordable housing project that will be funded in part with tax credits issued by the South Dakota Housing and Development Authority, and they want to know what the zoning is before they fund. So I'm kind of, I understand your desire to know what it's going to look like and those kinds of things, but if you start delaying those decisions, you make it more difficult for us to be competitive on the statewide level when we're going after tax credits. So it's kind of an interesting issue. And other than that, no other, yes, ma'am.
So are you having another meeting
Not
then?
another one,
So
no.
the meeting he was referencing has
Yes,
happened.
we had the one last Thursday in the library.
And did you feel like, everything was okay then?
Yeah, I think so. The gentleman from the Sayer and Associates was more concerned that we were not asking for a parking variance, that we were accommodating all of our parking needs on site. And the other 2, there was a woman there who was concerned about history and the historic nature of the old school building. She believed every building, that building in particular, or every building of that type should be rehabilitated regardless of the economics of it. And the other gentleman was more concerned with the process. The city's, as I said, the makeup of the city's plan for the Pettigrew Heights area.
Councilor Neitzer.
Yeah, just real quick, and this just comment, that's what I have heard, and I know very well the person who spoke at Planning Commission, and I suspect he might have been at your meeting. And he's very passionate about historic preservation.
He is. It was a good conversation. We spent a fair amount of time talking about the area and that sort of thing, so it was well-intentioned.
And he's a good guy, and the movement's a good one where they'd like to see buildings preserved. This one's a challenging one and maybe expensive. The other thing I just do want to point out is and I'm very sensitive because I was there with Councilor Erickson. It's in my district with that development that got bigger than what anybody thought. Now everything is contextual. Out there you had a lot of homes backing right up to it, whereas here I would just point out you have commercial all around, you have major streets, and then you have I believe across Spring Avenue, I think you have an accessory parking lot over there too.
We do.
So I mean, it's essentially hemmed in or surrounded by commercial land uses. You don't have a whole lot of residential backing up to it, and even in the case that you do, it's separated by rights of way, and so it's not quite the same as maybe if you had single families abutting the property. So.
Councilor Kiley, and then I'll go to Councilor Starr.
Thank you. Jason, could we go back to the previous schematic? The row of parking, the 15 parking stalls on the northern portion of that is shaded in darker, was that, I guess I was of the assumption that was part of that, a separate parcel, not part of this property. Was that acquired or was it always a part of this?
No, those 15 spaces, that land was owned by the YMCA, and we are acquiring it from them.
You are, okay.
As part of this total project.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you. I apologize because because last time I went off on a rant like that, Mr. Point was here, and we're still discussing that. So. I am appreciative of the investment in this neighborhood, and please don't construe my rant, I guess, as saying that by any means that I don't think this development is appropriate for this neighborhood, and it's actually a place where we do as a city need to invest and continue to provide accessible housing. So that wasn't where I was headed, and I appreciate the difference in understanding that, but I'm still caught in that chicken or egg thing where there's the potential with some developers that you come first to get the change. And I get that you can't get financing if you don't have appropriate zoning. But I don't get a second bite at the apple either if it becomes something that the neighborhood or we find objectionable that's outside of what we're trying to do. So, I mean, it's a classic dilemma.
There's a dilemma there.
This was definitely this time of the evening, we should be discussing it over something than a dais. But thank you for coming.
Thank you for the
And
opportunity.
not to belabor things, but I have one more for you.
Sure.
All of the parking spaces that you see, and I hate to belabor it, but it's a big deal. Are you providing all of these because you truly think that you need this many for the tenants you're going to have, or are you doing it because the zoning ordinance requires it?
It's a combination. This is going to be a family project, so you're likely, particularly we'll have a few three-bedroom units, so you're likely to have families with more than one car. There's that possibility, and we need to meet the requirements. But I would say the majority of the time, we won't need anywhere near that many spaces in order to park our tenants.
I just would challenge, I mean, I don't, maybe there's a way that you could figure out how you could harness some of the existing parking, whether it be, conditional use for the accessory or leasing, and then have more green space, and maybe you give them a play set or something, I'm not trying to design your project, but.
I understand what you're saying. I think it goes back to my comments on Councilmember Starr's position. The South Dakota Housing Authority requires that you have control of parking and control of the site. And when you're starting to do shared parking and things like that, it makes it more difficult to be as competitive. And frankly, we're in this to compete to win, so we're trying to get it as tight as we can.
So you'd have a better chance of award if it's not encumbered, if you just own it free and clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Very good, thanks.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Council, I'd look for a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd on this.
Move approval. Second, Kylie.
All right, motion by Councilor Selberg, seconded by Kylie on that. Discussion amongst the council on this? All right, then we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 42, first reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 1320 North Archer Drive from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District number 10627-2019 and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
The applicant and owner here is Gary Haar. It's located at 1320 North Archer Drive. This is just east of North Cleveland Avenue and just south of Rice Street, just south of Grand Prairie Foods. It's about 0.6 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking to construct a future twin home on the lot.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic? Council, you have questions for Jason on it?
Set the date of hearing. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Jason. Just, why is the zoning change needed? There's a couple of other, isn't there new duplexes that the applicants, to the, what would be the south that are already there, or why was this zoned differently?
Well, this was probably just transferred over in Shaped Places as RS. And so as you look with it backing up to an industrial use and right on Cleveland Avenue, I think he's been having difficulties selling it for a single family, so he's trying to get one more twin home out of there. And it's a pretty large lot too to do a single family house.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? All right, looking for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd.
So moved, Brecky.
Second, Erickson.
All right, moved by Councilor Brecky, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 43.
Item 43, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 4800 North Cliff Avenue from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the CN Conservation District, number 10584-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Haley Breckner, and I'm representing the Planning and Development Services. So this rezone, the applicant and owner is the City of Sioux Falls. This is located at 4800 North Cliff Avenue. It's about 3.85 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is to match the correct zoning with the current use of a city-owned detention pond.
Thank you, Haley. Haley is an intern with us from SDSU, and she's been fantastic. I think it's their last week, I believe, with us, so.
Go Jacks.
Yeah, that's right.
Glad you could be here, Haley. Anyone from the public here to speak on this? Councilors, do you have any questions for Haley on this item? All right, I'd look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd on it.
So move, Neitzer.
Second, Kylie?
All right, motion by Neitzer, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Starr.
Maybe Haley could take a minute and describe the difference between a retention pond and a detention pond. I can never remember the difference, so.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So I know that
That's cruel.
so one of them diverts the water, and one of them holds the water until it can soak into the soil. And now I'm trying to remember which one does which thing.
Keep going, because I don't know.
Yeah. Detention holds, right? So that will hold the water until it can soak into the soil. The retention kind of diverts it to somewhere else.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, any other questions for Haley? We'll take a vote on this then, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 44.
Item 44, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 4400 North Siebert Lane from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the CN Conservation District, number 10587-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Okay, so the applicant and owner of this one as well is the City of Sioux Falls. This one's located at 4400 North Sewer Avenue. The size is 0.21 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is to correct the zoning with the current use of a city-owned detention pond.
All right, thanks, Haley. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? All right, council, do you have any questions for Haley on it? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd.
So moved.
Second, Brecky.
All right, moved by Kylie, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion? We will take a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 45, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 4600 North Cliff Avenue from the I-2 Heavy Industrial District to the CN Conservation District, number 10586-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. The recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Okay, so the applicant and owner of this one is also the City of Sioux Falls. This one is a little different, going from I-2 to CN instead of I-1 to CN. This one's located at 4600 North Cliff Avenue. It's about 2.73 acres, and the purpose is to match with the current use of a city-owned detention pond as well.
Thanks, Haley. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? Come forward.
I'm David Zokaitis, and with all this talk about detention ponds and retention ponds, I thought I'd make a little note of something I saw when I was in Pittsburgh. Detention ponds and retention ponds, they're kind of stark and kind of ugly frequently. There's just a hole half the time and water the other half. Well, there is an alternative. It's called a water garden. It's designed much like the same purposes, but they actually make it pretty. So you can have plants in there and it looks nice. And it's just a better way to have the same kind of facility because it's beautiful instead of stark and boring and kind of ugly. So something to think about for future detention ponds and retention ponds. A water garden instead.
All right, thank you. All right, counselors, do you have any questions for Haley on this item?
Move to set the second reading to Tuesday, September 3rd.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion by Erickson, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion, council? We'll vote, please.
Council member Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Item 46.
Item 46, first reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 900 East 56th Street North from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the CN Conservation District, number 10585-2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0. Recommendation is to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019.
Okay, so this is another area going from I-1 to CN. The applicant and the owner is the City of Sioux Falls. It's located at 900 East 56th Street North. Its size is 0.21 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is to match the correct zoning of a city-owned detention pond.
All right, thanks, Haley. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? Counselors, any questions for Haley on this? Look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, the 3rd of September.
So moved, Neitzer.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion by Neitzer, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion, council? We will vote on it, please.
Council member Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes. Okay, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 47 is deferred from the meeting of Tuesday, August 13, 2019, a resolution establishing the City of Sioux Falls provisional legislative priorities for the 2020 state legislative session.
Good evening, Jim David, at the City Council office. For your consideration tonight is the provisional legislative priorities for the 2020 state legislative session. At the previous meeting, there were 2 successful amendments. Those amendments are up on the screen. One includes a support for expanding the law enforcement training facility, and the second item, item 19, is in support of industrial hemp in South Dakota. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item at all? All right, council, I'll turn it back over to you for further discussion and debate as this was deferred from last meeting. So, Councilor Staley.
Mr. Mayor, I have 2 more amendments that I want to bring forth. Is this the time to do it?
You bet.
Okay, so the first one, I'd like to make a motion to amend the priorities by adding the following statement. The City Council supports legislation that promotes pollinator-friendly plantings on all state-owned properties and right-of-way.
All right, is there a second for that?
Second, Brecky.
All right.
2 seconds.
All right, we only need 1. So there's a motion by Councilor Staley on that and a second by Councilor Starr. Councilor Staley, you want to unpack that at all?
I would be happy to unpack it. I was so excited this weekend to see on Kello Radio's Facebook page that they had a little report about our governor, Kristi Noem, coming out endorsing more environmentally friendly things for the bees in our state to help them. And Councilor Brecky and I have been working on a ordinance that's going to be doing exactly that same thing in our city, and also encouraging people to do plantings that are going to be beneficial to butterflies, bees, and birds. So encouraging our state to have these kind of plantings on the state highways, interstates, state parks, rest stops, state office grounds. And I'm reminded of Lady Bird Johnson. She had a thing where she had her I think they're called bluebells that were planted all along the interstates, sea of color. So it's kind of a neat thing. Anyway, that's why I'm bringing this forth.
Got it. Any other discussion on that one, Council? Councilor Neitzer and Councilor Brecky.
I just want to state, I'm going to vote no on any amendment that's brought tonight because frankly, the process is broken because we're just springing amendment after amendment without talking to anybody else at the last minute. And we don't, the process, we could just be doing this week after week after week. And some of these have some merit, but they just, you know, they're not discussed. Nobody brings them up and talks to anybody about them. So, and we don't need to be deferring this another week.
Councilor Brecky.
I wish I would have had a chance to speak first, Councilmember Neitzer, because I wanted to, you know, actually address Councilmember Erickson, who is the chair of our Legislative Policy Committee. I know that it is not preferred that we bring him at the last minute, but I do need to explain the reason this one came at the last minute, because there is a reason for that. Councilmember Staley and I have been working, I think as you know, we've been working on a beekeeping ordinance, and we've actually been working with our Parks Department on becoming a more bee and butterfly friendly city. They've already agreed to do more flower plantings in our flower parks and, you know, pursue that in our own Parks Department. And they're also working with us on putting a paragraph in the brochure for the Boulevard Gardens. So this was something that we were working on in our own. Then this article comes out, and we see that there's an interest by our governor, you know, in this same thing. So, you know, there really wasn't time. And sometimes I think with legislative policy, I'm not going to speak for the other ones that came forward, but I will definitely speak for this one. This was certainly not intended to circumvent the process, but it was to kind of seize the moment and the opportunity. And I realize we still have to pitch this now to the rest of the joint body that, you know, will ultimately be deciding on a joint agenda. But it is a marvelous opportunity for us to work, you know, hand in glove with our governor. And actually, I do remember as well, Lady Bird Johnson in the state of Texas was known as the Flower Lady, and I actually drove through Texas when that was happening. It was the most beautiful thing. The ditches were just full of all kinds of colorful wildflowers. And because I've been working on this with Councilmember Staley, I've learned so much about the sustainability issues related to this and how important it is in a small sort of way. So I do really kind of implore you on this one in particular. You know, I do apologize for the fact that it's coming late, but we do want to seize the opportunity. I do realize that, you know, we will still run it through the joint committee, you know, to get a final determination on it. But I would, you know, really plead with you to please, you know, pass this effort, because it is something that we were working on, and it's just an opportune moment for it. So I would ask you to reconsider that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. I will say that this is frustrating, and I'm not going to debate the merits of these items, either of these two or anything else that comes forward at the last second here. But it all has to do with following the process that this body put into place, and the committee that was formed and presented to the body as a whole quite some time ago. And then to have last week items that are brought forward without sharing any of that before the meeting with all members of this body. And now tonight, whether it's and again, I'm not going to debate the merits, but it has to go back to the process. I mean, there's been a number of us that have been hit over the head with the word transparency. This is anything but transparent. And so I, like Councilor Neitzer, am not going to vote on anything that is brought forward for the first time this evening, as well as, you know, I will vote for what was brought forward last week, because we've all had a week to digest that now. But, I mean, we can't have it both ways. Thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Well, last week, actually, what was presented last week, and that came out of the informational that was new information last week. So Councilor Kiley, you don't get to say you're not going to support it anymore, because that was already voted on. You heard it last week, and it was passed last week. So that's on record. Am I right, Mr. Greco? I believe that's.
Councilor, if I may, Mr. Mayor, respond to that, because Councilor Erickson or Councilor Staley clearly did not listen to what I just stated. I have every intention, I'll state it again for your benefit, I have every intention of supporting what was brought forward last week, because we've had a week to digest that.
But I understand it. I understand. But
Councilor Kiley, you finish, and then
yes, I am finished. I've said enough. Okay, thank you.
So what I brought it forward last week. We voted the same night. I didn't hear you have a problem with it. And I'm holding in my hand the priorities 13, 14, and 15 that Counselor Starr brought forth a year ago, and no one had an issue when he sprung those on at the last minute. And he brought those up after he had heard the chamber had issues, wanted them added. So we added them. And there was, nobody had any problems with them being added at the time. So I think we are picking and choosing who we're picking and choosing on.
Thank you. Counselor Erickson?
I think the clear difference is there's no transparency in this, this was not brought forward, other than this is the first time that any of us are seeing it, other than 3 people. And so that's the clear defined difference. And as well as last week, we deferred it. So while those were voted on, it was deferred and we had a week. And so that's the very big difference between, I don't think anybody's saying that they won't consider it, but we can't just keep willy-nilly adding stuff on last minute over and over and over again, and there's a clear process to follow. This ordinance was worked on for quite some time. There's plenty of time to bring it forward previously, and so it's just a frustrating process when there's no transparency of bringing it forward for the rest of everyone's benefit to consider and think about it. Thank you.
Counselor Selberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as far as last year, I do remember what happened, and I don't know that I wasn't very happy about it either. We had a bunch of things last minute, and it was kind of strange because we had quite a process again that we went through to get to it, and then everything was last minute, and now it seems like we're getting in that habit. So I'm probably going to support it tonight just out of a will of good gesture, but I'll say from this point forward, if I'm still holding this seat next year when we go through this process again, if anything does come up last minute, I won't be, because we aren't following the process, but we did kind of get in the habit all of a sudden from last year, so I guess again, as a goodwill gesture, I'll go along this year, but not next year.
Counselor Neitzer?
And I want to say it's not even just about the process, and I totally respect what Counselor Brecky had brought up because of the governor had publishing her article, which maybe have been this weekend, I think. But again, I think another major issue is that some of these are big statements, and to have them just sprung on us. I mean, just as an example, what if I just, without giving you any warning, just said, I'd like to propose an amendment that we abolish the death penalty in South Dakota. I mean, would you not want to have more than maybe 30 seconds to think about the ramifications of that before you weigh in on it? So these are big deals. The thing last week, industrial hemp, that was a huge, huge issue in the legislature. I mean, they're still struggling with that. And and so I was uncomfortable with what happened last year. It was sprung on us, and I was uncomfortable with what happened last week. And I'm just saying at this point, it's time where I'm saying I have to draw a line in the sand. We have to do better. We can't be asked to be making these major policy statements, and I get it, they're draft, but it's what's going to be taken over to the next body this quickly. We have to be more deliberative.
Counselor Brecky?
I wasn't going to bring it up at this time, but I will. I have been concerned about the process that we have in place, from the beginning, and I've actually have had some conversations with Jim David about perhaps making some minor changes next year. And my concern has evolved into a concern that we only have a joint legislative issue when we a policy statement, and that we don't have a city one that's separate from the joint group. And so I've talked to Jim about possibly suggesting next year that we have that we develop our own legislative agenda as a city, and then pluck from that those things that are worthy of of a joint policy statement. And in that process, how I see that working is, really having 2 separate documents, because I know there's issues from the mayor's office that really aren't joint issues, but are city issues. And that process then, they could go hand in hand or side by side. But I think that would involve an opportunity to have more than just an email out really early saying, do you have any legislative issues? Because that kind of starts you thinking about it. But then when we get closer to adopting, more things come up, and maybe there could be an early process and then a mid or later process, because things come up as we go. And this is, again, one that happened that way. And I apologize, but I do really wish that the rest of you would give us that goodwill support as well, because it would be really nice to be able to bring that forward. And again, I realize that whether or not that's of interest to the joint group, I don't know, but I think ultimately it should be something that's interested in for the city because of what Councilmember Staley and I are doing, and I'm hoping that the council will ultimately be supportive of it. But so I'm hoping that with your support we can have some discussions, and that might provide more opportunities along the way, and have the kind of discussions, you know, by adding a little more process to the process.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the question.
Is there a second on that? All right, so not a second, so that fails for lack of a second. Jim, did you have
Yeah, I just want to bring your attention to the screen here. You'll see the timeline of how the process works. So the most important thing probably to bring up is that this is a provisional resolution. This is not the final resolution that will go before the legislators. The other important part to bring up in this is that the joint legislative body has really already completed its work. They're no longer going to meet. So this is now going to the Municipal League at their annual convention. And so many of you are on those policy committees, and you can bring some of these items forward to those specific policy committees and have that amended for their final policy statement. And that occurs on October 8th through the 11th. And there's a legislative breakfast, and that legislative breakfast does include members of this council. There's 4 of you that are appointed to that, along with other members of the Minnehaha County Commission and some of our other local communities. And that breakfast will kind of discuss these items. And then there'll be an informational again to revisit this whole resolution, and you have the opportunity to amend it. In fact, we'll make sure we have additional time for additional amendments. And then from that, the fruit of that will go before a final resolution in December, and then that resolution will then be sent to each legislator within our area, and then that, and then also we will send that to the municipal league. So I just wanted to run through that timeline again, and we'll also bring up a point too with what Councilor Brecky had said. One of the changes that we had discussed making was having a working session or an informational meeting right at the very beginning of the process. Maybe just introduce it, and maybe email is not enough to get everyone's attention, but if we have an informational, bring more attention to it, more buy-in at the very beginning. What the problem that you oftentimes deal with is that it's so early, the legislative session has just stopped, and so it's so hard to start talking about the following year. So I just wanted to raise that for you all.
Yeah, great points, Jim. Thank you. All right, we're going to vote on the First Amendment presented by Councilor Staley, and it was seconded by Councilor Starr. So let's take a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
No.
Kylie,
No.
Nitzert,
No.
Selberg,
Yes.
All right, that passes 5-3.
Okay, Mr.
Councilor Staley, you had
Mayor,
a
I
second
have
amendment?
a second motion to amend. The city council supports legislation. Requires at least 1 employee for 10 video lottery machines be physically present at a video lottery casino during hours of operation.
All right, I don't
Second,
hear a
Starr.
second. Okay. Seconded by Councilor Starr. Councilor Staley?
And this is, let me say, I'm responding to a man named Pat Powers, who has a political blog, and last week after our discussion at this meeting, he put on his blog that Starr, Staley, and I are trying to explode the presence of video lottery across the state. And I just wanted to say that nothing could be farther from the truth. So that was what I told him, I called that fake news. But what we are seeing here is we're seeing kind of a mixed message from this group, because apparently we think that, I mean, this is our chance to talk to the legislature. We just heard the state law. Staley, if you don't like it, change it at the state. So either we say, yes, we think it's good to have 20 machines in a facility with 1 person. Last week you didn't support that one. And so now I'm saying, well, what I tried to say tonight was you need one person for every 10 machines, which apparently is what the state is saying is what's within a legal establishment. You can have 10. But we're trying to somehow make it 20 and keep it one person, but yet keep it two businesses. So we're convoluting things, and I say let's go back, like I said earlier when I voted against that ordinance, that I think we need to send a message to the state that things need to be changed for the safety of the individual. So to Pat Powers, here you go.
All right. Seeing no other discussion on this one, I'm going to call for a vote on it.
Councilmember Sale?
No.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
No.
Erickson?
No.
Kylie? No. Nitzert?
No.
Selberg?
No.
All right, that passes, or excuse me, that fails 7-1. So we're back to the main motion as has been amended.
Move to
Is there
approve,
any other
Brecky.
changes?
There's
There's already a motion to approve on the table, so any other discussion or amendments to bring forward? All right, then I'm going to call for a vote on the amended main motion, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Thank you. Item 48.
Item 48, a resolution amending the 2019-2023 capital program for Parks and Recreation flood-related damages.
We almost lost you, Don. You're on now.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. Don Kearney, Parks and Rec. This item is related to the previous flood damage item for the capital portion of those projects, the bridge at Dunham and the shelters at Legacy. And so we need to amend the capital program to allow those projects to take place.
Thanks, Don. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this one tonight? All right, Council, do you have any questions for Don on it? Look for a motion to approve it.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? I'll call a vote, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 49.
Item 49, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota approving the placement of a sculpture on public property.
Hey, Russ.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, Sioux Falls. Russ Sorensen, Planning Projects Coordinator with the city. This resolution is for approving the Coach Greeno bronze sculpture by local sculptor Darwin Wolf of Sioux Falls. Proposed placement for this sculpture is on the east bank of the River Greenway, bike trail between Tut Hill and Paisley Park. Although the proposed placement site is relatively flat and within a floodplain, an engineering review will be done to determine the necessary elevation to reduce any flood risk. This sculpture depicts a well-known and loved coach who was respected, Coach Richard Greeno. He was locally known as well as nationally recognized as a coach. Coach Greeno is depicted as running as he trained and encouraged his teams. He will measure approximately 8 feet in height, 4 feet in width, 4 feet in length, and be prominently displayed on a pedestal with an informational plaque, and it'll be lit with solar lighting. Tonight with me is the Richard Greeno Memorial Group, along with the artist Darwin Wolf, and they will be responsible for the project costs associated with the sculpture placement and installation, and they intend to gift the sculpture to the city, adding to our permanent artwork collection. Both the Sioux Falls Visual Arts Commission and the Parks and Recreation Board have reviewed the Coach Greeno sculpture and the placement at the respective July 16th and 17th meetings, respectively, and they unanimously recommend approval of the sculpture placement as presented. We've received no public comments of a negative nature on this sculpture placement. At this time, your consideration is requested to approve the resolution. Again, the Richard Greeno Memorial Group and the artist is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Brecky.
No questions, just a statement. I did just run across that. I think it's been temporarily housed at the pavilion. And I stopped and read it, looked at it, and I can't resist commenting. It's just the most serene look that this man has on his face as he's running. And the plaque does a beautiful job of describing his love of running And it's just a really lovely sculpture, and I just can't help resist saying that as long as the artist is here. I did not know this man. I used to be a runner though, and it just breathes that joy into it. So I'm glad that everything was done unanimously, and I'm glad to be able to vote on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Counselor Kiley.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to say that it is an extreme pleasure to be a member of this council and voting on this resolution this evening. This man played a major role in the lives of a number of people that are sitting out in the audience as both students and athletes. Played a major role in my life as well as an athlete and as a colleague, both on the track and field team as well as a colleague in the classroom. Coach Greeno impacted more lives than any of us will ever know. I think even those of us that are here and know him well. Extraordinary man, and he would go to extraordinary lengths to coach the sport that he loved. Even if you were competing for a different high school, as I was at the time, O'Gorman High School, and competing directly against his son, Mark. I'll have to say that during the O'Gorman and Lincoln track meets, he wasn't coaching me, but certainly during the developmental sessions in the summer and during the developmental track meets that he hosted for many, many years at the back of, at the Lincoln High School track, he did coach me. And as a young man then, it struck me as this guy is taking time out to give me pointers. In this case, it was in the hurdles because I didn't really have a hurdles coach, even though I'm a direct competitor with his son. And so what had been neck and neck races between Mark and myself, Mark might remember it differently, but after the coaching tips, you know, I was a yard to yard and a half ahead of his own son. And that wasn't lost on me as a 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old at the time. The look on his face, I mean, that's Coach Greeno. You have captured it well. The position of his hands, how many of you remember him talking to you about hand positioning during your runs? And I want to say that he was every bit as good in the classroom as he was out on the track or out in cross country. He put as much time and effort and pride in the classroom. I had the privilege of teaching with him in biology and sharing a room with him. Even the times when the boa constrictor got loose and the custodian wouldn't clean our room anymore. So just a great man. It is my pleasure to vote for this. And, you know, a shout out to his wife. We lost Coach and he had lost his wife Rosemary as well. But a shout out to Rosemary and to Mark and Luann Greeno as well too. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion, council? All right.
Mayor, councilors, the artist is here this evening, and he does have the mock-up model, I believe, to show, if you'd be interested.
Absolutely. If we could bring that forward, please.
Good evening, Darwin.
Thanks for the comments.
I've never looked that happy when I'm running, so good job.
You know, I will add, I saw that smile as he was passing me at the end of a road race. And it was just a Monday night road race, which is pretty leisurely, but he waited until the last 10 or 15 yards to go zipping by me and turned and flashed that smile as he crossed the line ahead of me.
All right.
I had a few people mention that some said that Coach coached that smile to psych out other runners, and to have the guy that's getting passed just dead drop quit when they see Coach having so much fun, or Coach saying to his runners, when they see you smiling, they're going to die. So I heard that several times. I'm not sure, but I had to have that smile.
Especially if it was at the top of the Tut Hill Hill.
I think final comment I want to, City Attorney has something he'd like to say as well.
Well, I guess this is not to be construed as legal advice, by the way, but I had the privilege of knowing Coach Greeno as well at USF, and one of the things that leapt out to me is that this is an 8-foot statue. Is that right? I remember many conversations with Coach Greeno, right, where he was probably a little more about the size of that mock-up. He was not a very big guy, but he is truly a guy, to know him was to love him. And so even though he was substantially shorter than me, certainly somebody I looked up to. And so to have the privilege of looking up to him with this would be a wonderful thing. So.
One correction there. It's 5'8", so that might have been the mix-up.
It is, okay.
Okay. Either way, I'm still going to look up to it.
I look for a motion.
Move to approve. Thank you.
Second, Brecky.
Motion approved by Counselor Kiley and seconded by Counselor Brecky. We will take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 50.
Item 50, a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Karen Gorley, Commission on Human Relations, Angela Landine, Falls Community Health Center Governing Board, Michael Conlon and Rick Weber to Parks and Recreation Board, Matt Peterson to the Property Maintenance Board of Appeals, also Ronald Rensberger to Property Maintenance Board of Appeals, and Brett Gilbers to the Public Transit Advisory Board.
All right, anyone from the public here to speak on these items? All right, looking for a motion to approve these, please.
Move to approve. Second, Brecky.
Move to approve by Kiley, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Council members Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Okay, that passes 8-0. I look for a motion to adjourn, please.
So move, Star.
Second.
Seconded by Erickson. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. We are adjourned. Have a good night.